Yes, in closed session, the board considered items A and B under item 4.1 of the agenda. No reportable action on those, and also on the item added to the agenda regarding Los Angeles County Water Works District 40 versus Diamond Farming et al. Case number BC 325201 and case number S 1500 CV 254348. The board had no reportable action as well.
If you indulge with me for just a moment, I want to bring you up to date. We had a resolution that was on the agenda at the last meeting, and the resolution was not in our package, so the item was tabled to this meeting. The accountant is on vacation and wants to make a presentation to the board, so we have delayed that action item to the next board meeting. And if you're here for that tonight, I apologize, but we want to hear what the accountant has to say. Okay. Moving to item A, discussion and possible action to participate in the employer accessible subsidized earnings easy employment 2 program.
This is a program that has been put together by CalWorks. It's a grant program, and what it does will allow the district to start looking at individuals in the community that might need assistance in employment or career, more importantly. And those would be qualified, that would be on a welfare type of situation. They have to qualify. It pays 50% of their base pay plus 20% for administrative costs of their pay. And we have an individual in the community that has recommended, one of the teachers at the high school has recommended an individual that will be graduating and is the breadwinner for the home. So with that, we're looking at costs for a 17-week program. The half of the base pay and the 20% will cost, be a cost not to exceed $10,000 for the district. It will be helping an individual learn a trade or a potential trade, and possibly be able to provide for their family. The recommendation is to authorize the general manager to move forward with the EASE program for the 17-week period, not to exceed $10,000. Actual cost looked like with taxes about $8,100 to complete that, but you got to keep in mind we're getting about double that in what we would be paying for a full-time employee to do the same thing.
Do we have a summer hire program? Do we work with high school?
No, we don't.
We used to?
That we may have, I'm not sure. There's been programs that have come out of Employers Training Resource and CalWorks, several programs that have come out of there that we utilize quite often during the year. They pay for their wages.
And there's a 12-week program that comes out of the welfare work program pays 100%.
Right.
This is different.
This is different. This is because of the need and the qualifications. There's two different qualifications for those. We felt that the EASE program fit this situation better.
Open session. Going to item 6, public comments. At this time, any person may address the board on any subject within the district's jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. However, any non-agenda matter will be referred to staff for report and/or action at a subsequent board meeting, and no action can be taken on any subject, then any such item discussed unless the action has been authorized under section 54954.2, open parentheses, lowercase b, close parentheses, of the government code. Any person may also address the board on any agenda matter at the time that that matter is discussed, prior to the board consideration and action. Speakers are requested to limit comments to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to address the board? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Albert Gatton, and I just wanted to inform the board that on the April 2nd, we're going to be having a meeting actually here in this room at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be a presentation from the Kern Economic Development Corporation and the Small Business Development Center. I've requested them on behalf of the Rosamond Chamber of Commerce to come and speak with us and the business owners in the community about opportunities and programs that they have available, not only to assist the businesses that are currently here in the community, but as well as try to inform us of what their actions are to bring more businesses into our community, especially with the development and the upgrades that are happening on Diamond Street in downtown Rosamond.
Albert, what time was that?
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 7, comments and presentations. Director's comments. Mr. Glennan.
Attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting a week ago. The Diamond Street project, if you've been down there, they've started to work on it, and they're on target. The ribbon cutting will be sometimes toward the end of May or early June. You saw in the paper the grants. Mojave got $81,247 grants. Rosamond got $78,760. Boron got $73,883, and Tehachapi got $72,708. So we held our own in getting our percent of those monies. At the next meeting on April 16th, they'll be voting on some potential changes in their bylaws. You want to be there, and the election for new officers will be on the May 21st meeting. And right now, there's about 58 to 60 businesses in the chamber. Of those businesses, about 30 or 40% are actually from Lancaster. So we need to get more people from Rosamond in the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Mr. Wallis.
Welcome.
Mr. Shingledecker. Mr. Landsgaard.
Just briefly, many are probably wondering about the street lights not being on the agenda. We did take care of it 2 weeks ago, and my understanding is that it'll take a couple weeks for them to turn them back on, and then they're in the process of doing that. And so be patient, it'll happen. At the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council meeting last Thursday night, we had Ron Smith from the City of Lancaster, City Councilman, came and spoke. Gave a very good presentation on a number of things that have gone on in Lancaster, a very proactive business approach to things. He basically said we take the attitude of don't take no for an answer. Instead of figuring out how not to do something, actually figure out how to do something. It was a good message there. Talked about how you think outside the box and how that is resulted in the first of its kind. Somebody who competes with Southern California Edison, Lancaster Choice Energy in Lancaster. It's a good thing for us to start learning about, especially since we are a special district and we have no city in Rosamond. And certainly something we can talk to Zach Scribner, the county, or even look at our own angle on things to see what can be done if we can provide, like Lancaster's doing, cheaper electricity for a better value. Look forward to tonight's discussion. One of the things is, as you know, on the Brown Act, we're not allowed to put a bunch of things about what we're talking about. One of the things that needs to be talked about is the 90-day contracts we have with the county for maintaining those parks. Budget year for us begins July 1st, the budget year for the county begins July 1st, and the budget year for the school district begins July 1st. And so it's very important, I think, that we take some action on those contracts tonight. And I would be asking for comment on that. If you have any opinions on if anybody understands those contracts or had a chance to review them, certainly that would be helpful.
give you an update on the AVAC meeting that I attended last night. There was a presentation by Rick Campbell and his staff, and it was about the demonstration garden that they have out at 101st Street and Avenue I. It's being done by the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District. The presentation consisted of what the Conservation District has been doing with the donations that they've received. And they're looking for donations to continue their current work on showing people how to conserve water while landscaping their property. It was told how people who lived outside this area brought their flowers and shrubs to this area, and the plants quickly died. And so the demonstration garden displays types of native flowers that they can grow in their nursery, and you can grow at your place, and these flowers and shrubs are for sale at their nursery. They had a demonstration garden. They have a demonstration garden that is open to the public, which shows the types of plants that are conducive to the desert environment. There's also trails there at the garden that you can traverse through the garden and see the different outlays of the native plants that they have here. There will be an open house on May the 2nd, 2015 from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the public is invited. The garden is located again at Avenue I and 101st Street. There was another presentation there last night, by Mark Petroff. He's the CEO of Nexus E-Water Incorporated, on a gray water system his company is introducing to the Antelope Valley. And what it is, and this is for use through new construction. It's not for, they don't have a way of going back and retrofitting to houses that are already constructed. And you'll understand that as I go through here and tell you about it. So one of the things that they will do is they'll capture the gray water, the water from your sinks, and separate it from the black water, which is from your toilets. It'll go through into a machine. The machine will clean it, not to any standard, but it'll be clean enough that you can take it and put it on your flowers, put it on your flower garden. And one of the things that they're proposing is that with the use of this system, that homeowners will use only 65% of the water that they're currently using. So there'll be a savings of water, and they're bringing this in as a conservation method, okay, to help save water. And then there was some staff reports, and one staff report, the general manager, Dan Flory, reported that the Antelope Valley East Kern Water District would receive an additional 174 acre-feet of water, and at the present time it has not been decided on how this additional water will be divided amongst its customers. They're working on that. Okay? Informational items, legal update. Allison?
Just a reminder to fill out your Form 700s and get them turned in before April 1st.
Okay. General manager.
Yeah, I
District projects.
attended SDRMA, which is a Special District Risk Management Authority conference. That's a conference that they give training in and give CIP points, which is your continuing education type points for our liability and workers' comp insurance. We have saved as much as $18,000 in a year on our premium cost by attending these types of accredited trainings. They hold them at their training facility once a year, or at in their area, and then they have additional trainings throughout the CSDA functions at the annual conferences and leadership conferences, etc. And I think some of you may have, I know Mr. Wallis has attended them, Director Glennan has attended them and attended also this week. So those hopefully will help mitigate our insurance costs by the additional training.
So was that the guy that came and spoke to us Was also from there?
He gave one segment of the classes that were there. They had a certificate, safety certificate track, and I'm not sure, Byron, did you take that one?
I did, was that, yeah.
So he got certified while he was up there, but they're well worth attending because we get credit for it. When we first decided to start participating in this program, I had staff work up costs for all the trainings that we would need to get the largest credit. And I believe in that year, using the $18,000 figure, I think the cost was like $8,000 versus what we benefited, and it was extremely cost effective to attend. We calculated those costs at the highest possible rates to ensure that we were utilizing a conservative cost method, and it's well worth the time and the effort to do so. In addition, we're having a community presentation here next Wednesday, April 1st, from 6 to 7:30. It's a Solarized Kern County community presentation, workshop type situation by an organization that's going to come in and hopefully show the community how they might be able to solarize their homes and the benefits and what it takes to do so. So we encourage folks to come in and attend that meeting. Yes.
Did you hear anything? I read it where in Arizona they're putting utility companies putting a $50 charge on people that's putting solar on their house. And Solar City's suing them. Have you heard anything about that coming in California or anything?
I have heard of that lawsuit, but I'm not sure where it's at.
That's Arizona.
Yeah.
And they said New Mexico's thinking about doing it.
Well, as far as where they are in the litigation process, I'm not sure. I do know that people ought to be cautious in when they get solar to understand how their load is calculated. In the first tier of your electric load, it's the lowest tier that you pay for. Sometimes solar companies won't tell you, and they'll look at your electric load. Say, for instance, you're using 20 kW. They try to build a solar array for your home at 20 kW. And when actually half of that, maybe 10 kW, is at a lesser cost than it costs to put up the solar. So the actual need is when you start getting into the higher tiers, what you want to do with your solar is level out those costs that the higher tiers will cause you, and that's how big you should start looking at your solar development for your homes.
What was that time again?
6 o'clock, 6 to 7:30 on the 1st. And that's the end of my report.
Mr. Landsgaard moves. Do I have a second? Mr. Wallis seconds.
And is that to accept the staff recommendations? Is that what the motion is?
Yes.
Public discussion. Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 5-0. Item B, discussion and possible action to approve the directors and general managers' attendance to conferences and trainings. Perez.
This is to formalize a liability prevention issue within the district. In one of our trainings, as you'll recall, Dennis Timothy from the SDRMA suggested that we have a board action that allowed board members to attend conferences. That way your liability insurance would cover you because you would be at work at the time if something should happen. And that's what we're trying to accomplish by approving board members' attendance at CSDA, Aqua, AWA, whatever our affiliate organizations are when they arise and we decide we want to go to those or need to go to those for training purposes.
3 different organizations, how many meetings are we saying we're going to pay for directors to go to?
It has nothing to do with pay. It has everything to do with just the covering the liability issue. That would be a different subject. This is just covering it, approving each attendance that you would go to.
We still have to get approval from the board to do these?
Yeah, it even covers you coming and going, right?
Correct. This is a blanket motion to cover the fact that we will attend conferences, and while we're attending them, that for mobility purposes, we're working.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Wallis, motion. Do we have a second?
And that's specifically to state that while we're attending conferences and trainings, we are working. That'll be good.
Is that the motion?
No.
Yes. And coming and going in your vehicle.
Okay.
Public discussion. Anyone want to address the board? Okay, call for the questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 votes. Nominate Joel Bauer from the West Side Cemetery District to seat A on the CSDA Board of Directors.
Joel Bauer was appointed recently to serve as one of the Kern County representatives to the Board of Directors in a short seat. Now he's running again for the full term seat. I think he was appointed about 4 months ago, and I believe this is just to set him up for the full term.
Who else is winning?
I don't believe there's anybody right now because he's the only incumbent, and they didn't have anybody else.
There's a challenge to it.
Right. There was a challenge a couple months ago. There were 2 others, one from Lake Isabella and one from Big Farland. Both of them had very little experience. They were brand new. They did want to get involved, but Joel has been participatory in the CSDA and the cemetery districts, special districts, and had received the lion's share of the votes.
And there was a vote already?
Yeah. He was appointed to a short term.
Appointed to short term, and there was a vote after that?
Now, there will be, with this, to this point, no one has shown their interest to be appointed.
So the Lake Isabella person's not interested, or my Parliament person's not interested, with Joe Bauer from Westside Bakersfield?
West Side Taft, actually,
What's the staff recommendation?
to appoint Joel Bauer.
And who appointed the first time?
Pardon?
Who appointed him 4 months ago?
We voted on it.
Oh, you voted on it?
Yeah, there were 3 nominees.
And how soon? Well, how soon do we actually have to take action? Is it still, we have nominations, other nominations that we either choose from April, or is it just, we're just going to keep them?
This is just getting him on the ballot. Then the Board of Directors will do the official election.
Mr. Gibson was from Taft, is that correct?
He was.
He lives in Bakersfield.
Do you have a motion on the staff's recommendation? So moved. Mr. Glennan moves. Do we have a second? Mr. Wallis seconds. Public discussion. Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
4-1. Item D, consideration and possible adoption of resolution 2015-4 regarding non-involvement of district directors on the board of directors of Rosamond Community Services District Foundation.
We have that resolution in front of us.
Mr. President, I just want to point out for the board that the draft, the resolution before you includes alternate language in brackets that I would request whatever motion might be made, clarify whether the bracketed language should be included or excluded from the final resolution signed and adopted by the board if the resolution is adopted.
You need a motion to get this rolling?
Yes.
I vote that we adopt resolution number 2015-4, including the bracketed language.
Public discussion. Mr. Wood.
Good evening. My name is Greg Wood, and I am president of the Rosamond Foundation. And I was hoping that there would be some discussion as to why you're taking this action. I don't understand what the reasoning for. But I just want to bring to light here that the Rosamond Community Service District Foundation is a separate corporation with its own board of directors, which you, Mr. Mackay, and Mr. Shingledecker are members of that foundation board as secretary and treasurer. You know, it's the foundation was created to sponsor, promote, and advance and assist in the provision of the Rosamond Community Service District water and sewer, public parks, facilities, and recreation in the town of Rosamond, and to receive, invest, and utilize funds acquired through fundraisers, donation, grants, gifts, bequests, and other solicitations for said purpose. And being as that the RCSD does not have any funding for parks or for any outside funding for water and sewer projects, facilities, the foundation is at this particular time, is the only revenue source that this agency has to go out and get grants and bequests and to raise money through fundraisers and things like this, and to get people to donate by taking advantage of the 501c3 deduction on their taxes. I know it was said that some directors had a concern that being on the foundation board constituted a violation of the Brown Act. This isn't true. Because when you are at a foundation meeting, you are not there as directors of RCSD. You're there as directors of the foundation. And the only way you would violate the Brown Act is if you actually discussed and took action among yourselves on district business. I want to point out that Article 4 and 4.2.1, the director of the Rosamond Community Service District of the town of Rosamond, or his or her designee, shall be an ex officio member of the board of directors and shall be invited to all board meetings. That word invited means none of you five are required to be there, but you are members. That's the way the bylaws are written up. And also, I'm not an attorney, but I feel that the action you take tonight, wouldn't be valid for the simple fact is that these bylaws are governed by the Rosamond Foundation Board of Directors. And the only way that these bylaws can be changed is the Foundation Board of Directors needs to take action and vote on it. This board tonight has no jurisdiction over the foundation or its board. And as far as attending the meetings, none of you are required to be there. And if you decide among yourselves that you want to not attend, nothing's going to be said. You're still a director in good standing as long as you are on this board. If you want to make some kind of a proclamation with your board to say that you want to limit among yourself 2 directors to attend our foundation board meetings, that's fine too. But I wouldn't be so quick to disassociate yourself from the only organization that was created by this board in these chambers many years ago. And this is your only funding source for your parks, for your water projects, for your sewer projects. So I would strongly urge you to please reconsider this action and let things stay as they are. Thank you.
Mr. Woods, there was a lot going on here last year about what that money, you raised that money, you can only go to the district projects, right?
Yes, the money.
You go to Little League or anything else like that, right?
No. The money it's very clear in the bylaws that it was created to enhance RCSD, parks and recreation, and water and sewage. Director Landsgaard, you mentioned building a marsh. Where are you going to get the money for that? If that's something that you want to pursue and look at down the future, the foundation is your only source of finding the revenue to develop something like that. And so that's why I say, be careful about disassociating yourself from this, because it's a great organization. We had a great meeting earlier this month. I believe that we are going to turn it around. We're going to be a very strong foundation, and we're going to be a very positive influence in this community. Thank you.
We cannot prohibit our members from serving on a board if they want to. So we have language that says it prohibits its members based on the foundation's bylaws. In other words, we prohibit our board directors from serving because foundation bylaws say they have to be on the board.
I think you're asking if we could change the language of the resolution to say that no member of the district's board of directors shall serve on or appoint a designee to the foundation's board of directors by virtue of their seat on the Rosamond Community Service District Board of Directors. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I want. Could I add that?
Sure, you would have to amend your motion.
I would amend my motion to include that so it doesn't sound like we're telling people they can't serve on something they don't want to.
Let me give you a little history.
We need to know if that's okay with the seconder.
I want to add, it says by virtue of we're prohibiting from serving on the Finance Board of Directors by
As I said, by virtue of their seat on the Rosamond Community Services District Board of Directors.
They can still serve.
They could still serve by separate appointment.
Okay. Because I think that might have found the first one.
It's okay.
I'm doing some research on the foundation. The foundation was not paid for by the community. The foundation was paid for all the fees from the Rosamond Community Service District. And all I've heard since I've been on this board is that these are 2 distinct and separate organizations. You can't be a separate and distinct organization if one organization is paying for the other. And the second thing is, I attended the meeting this past month, and there was a potential Brown Act violation at that meeting. There were 3 board members from this board, there was actually 4. And one left early before the violation, the possible violation could have happened. And that was that we were discussing at that board meeting the skate park. And it was brought up by somebody there to have the community service district fund the money that was needed to start the skate park by the district. And if any of the three board members had had a discussion with that there, it would have been a violation of the Brown Act because we are members of this board. And when we go someplace and there's three of us there, that constitutes a meeting of this board. And so we put this together so that to limit us from being in violation of the Brown Act. Okay. Any more public discussion?
I think what's happening a lot of times is some of the people there probably don't realize they're doing the Brown Act, right?
Right.
That's where it comes in, the problem comes in.
Part of the problem comes in, they don't have, being a non-profit organization, they don't fall completely under the Brown Act. But if three of us get together and we're discussing anything that has in regards to this district, we're in violation of the Brown Act.
Thank you, Mr. Shingledecker. You said it better than I did.
I understand.
Okay.
Can I speak to it?
Yes.
I'll be very short. It absolutely makes no sense to me to have this resolution. I cannot understand it at all. The foundation was established to be an arm, even though it's a separate arm of the Rosamond Community Service District, and develop funds for parks and recreation and water and sewer and so on. So it makes no sense to say, the directors cannot or should not be on the foundation.
Any further discussion?
I don't think it says that, does it? Resolution? Does it say that?
The resolution says that no member of the district's board of, as now potentially amended, no member of the district's board of directors shall serve on or appoint a designee to the foundation's board of directors by virtue of their seat on the Rosamond Community Services District Board of Directors.
But they can still serve on there.
They could still serve on there separately appointed under whatever the rules are for the foundation.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
4-1. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding the opening of Jim Williford Park Pool.
Mr. President?
1 second, I want to hear from the general manager first.
Well, we had the discussion and workshop, or the special meeting last week, and I think most of the information that we gave was that the pool was costing the district significant revenue to operate. And I believe the estimated cost was $50,000 a year in loss to operate the pool. It was held over for today's meeting to have the board discuss with the public and take a final vote.
And your recommendation is, you already told us that once, right?
Pardon me?
Your recommendation is?
My recommendation is, because it's a money loser, we have to consider it from a fiscal standpoint of shutting the pool down. Absent another plan unless we're gonna have a plan to keep it open and develop a plan for the debt service payment of the losses. And I think what it does is it goes into another item to really have that discussion. I think they're both part and parcel of one another. And that would be item number F. In that recommendation, I think there's, in my report now, I think it ought to be considered or at least discussed and considered when you make your pool discussion. Then I could better answer your question, Director Wallis.
I think Mr. Perez makes a good point. The two action items, E and F, do go together. There weren't what I actually expected to come out of the discussion we had. What I hope to see on the agenda was, are we going to terminate November 11, 2008 contract with the county and the August 18th, 2009 contract with the county, because that was where, I think that's what we need to do first before we do any action on closing the pool or otherwise dealing with Jim Williford Park. One of the problems with the foundation is, unless we're being good stewards of our money and not pouring $250,000 down the drain every year, what's the reason of having a foundation? So we can put money in there, get $5,000 donation here, $10,000 donation there against a $250,000 loss. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Let me read to you the letter of November 11, 2008 on the proposed agreement that was accepted by the RCSD. Proposed agreement, it's from the Kern County Board of Supervisors, November 11, 2008. Proposed agreement for operation of Rosamond Community Pool and Recreation Center, formerly known as West Park, SD number 2. Fiscal impact, $62,883.47 in fiscal year 2008-2009. CSA's budgeted discretionary. This is a letter from Charles Lackey, the PE director, which is the engineer. County Service Area CSA 63.5 was formed in 1993 at the request of Kaufman and Broad, also known as K&B, to support the West Park Recreation Center and Pool. K&B initially entered into an agreement with the county to subvent the cost of operating the pool for 3 years. When they were unable to expand as anticipated, they agreed to contribute to the cost of operations for 2 additional years. The county requested the property owners to support an increased service charge to properly fund the maintenance of the pool and recreation center. The property owners rejected the request to increase the services charges. During this time, the Board of Supervisors assisted with funding for a couple of years. After the increased service charges were rejected, it was decided to drain and close the pool, install a plastic liner, fill the pool with a sandy soil, pave over the pool surface, and board up the buildings. During this entire time, the residents of the CSA continued paying an annual assessment for the operation of the recreation center facilities. The Rosamond Community Service District approached the county and agreed to reopen the pool and to operate it and the balance of the recreation center. The facilities were transferred to the Rosamond Community Services District in mid-April 2007, with the understanding that the county would pay them funds collected from the property owners within the county service area to partially fund the operation of pool and park facilities. Shortly thereafter, the pool was restored to and open to the community, and the entire recreation center has been operated by the district. The Engineering and Survey Services Department has been working with the district to develop a mutually acceptable agreement to transfer accumulated and future CSA revenue to the Rosamond Community Service District to assist them with the cost of the maintenance and operation of the pool and recreation center. The county will retain a portion of the funds necessary to administer the county service area. County Council has reviewed the agreement and approved it as to form, therefore recommended that your board approve the agreement and authorize the chairman to sign. Now, the resolution, or the agreement follows, where they agree to pay $62,000 and then maybe another $80,000 in July 2009. Mr. Brad Brockbaum, I think, reported that we spend on the recreation center and the pool together over $500,000 a year. Am I correct on that?
I can't recall what his figure was.
250
plus another 230. And our entire 230 goes down, plus we go in the hole. Anyway, we go in the hole 230 every year. And so whatever we get from the county is clearly not anywhere close to what we need. There is an additional letter of August 18, 2009, Charles Lackey, recommending that the same thing, that these service areas were formed in 1990 and 1991 at the request of property owners to install and maintain landscaping services within the Rosamond area. For several years, the Kern County Parks and Recreation Department, County Parks Department, provided the landscaping maintenance service to the CSAs. The cost of the landscaping service was billed to the CSAs on an annual basis. The fiscal impact that was estimated was $126,000 in fiscal year 2009-2010. In anticipation of your board's approval of this agreement, Rosamond Community Service District has been maintaining the landscaping since July 1st, 2009. Rosamond Community Services has agreed to provide the landscaping and maintenance services, including the cost of utilities for the CSAs, with the understanding that the county would pay them funds collected from the property owners within the CSA to partially fund the cost of providing the services. The Engineering and Serving Services Department has been working with the RCSD to develop a mutually acceptable agreement to transfer future CSA revenue to RCSD to assist them with the cost of providing landscaping and maintenance services for the CSAs. The county will retain a portion of the funds necessary to administer the CSAs. The county council has reviewed the agreement, approved it as to form. Therefore, it is recommended that your board approve the agreement retroactive from July 1st, 2009, authorizing chairman to sign. They're in charge of the landscape areas. And I think it's within the purview here of our, what we have on the agenda here. I don't know if we have to direct staff or we need a motion to direct staff to tell the county pursuant to the August 18th the letter dealing with the pool, or I mean dealing with landscape areas, and the November 11th, 2008 letter dealing with the pool, that we are terminating the agreements in 90 days or no later than June 30th, 2015, which would be 5 days. I think that would wake them up to the fact that we need more money. And if it's something that we can get, if they don't want it back, then they need to come to the table. They're in a better position than any donor of the Rosamond Foundation would be to address that. Things have changed since 2009, a lot since actually 2013 with the windmills and the solar coming online in our general area. Now, unfortunately, RCSD only extends out to 60th or 65th Street West. But the bottom line is the county's been doing very well with what's in our area and trying to support us, and that might be something, that might be time to go back to them and say, well, see the time to support us. Or if we're not the best vehicle, maybe we can find someone else to maintain it, take over that deal, and you can come up with a way to keep them in the black, then let's get it done. But either way, we need, I think, to send a message to the county that we're done bleeding $250,000 a year from the ratepayers. And I think Mr. Mackay said it, making a loan to have this done for the water, for the people who pay their water bills, that isn't right. That isn't fair to the rest of the community. It's not right for the rest of the community. I don't think that's anything anybody wants to see, is that kind of continued putting the money over there when we need to be a little more responsible, a lot more responsible, and say, look, county, you've got the ability to help us out. You can help us out. There might be a third party who can help us out, or we might just have to do it on our own. But either way, these contracts should be unnoticed. We're getting out of the contracts effective June 30th, 2015. And if it's possible, I'd like to make a motion to that effect.
What exactly is the motion, just so we make sure you get it properly in the
Then
minutes?
on each of the contracts, the November, well, I guess they can make them separately.
Hold on,
And
hold on. Why don't we do this? Why don't you make a motion to table item E, and we'll make a motion to table item F, and then we'll direct staff to bring on the next agenda,
No.
the contract.
It's got to
It's
be.
not on the agenda, you can't do it.
Yes, it is. It's on the agenda. It's a part of what we talked about. We talked about it a week ago, and to say that it's not on the agenda, I think it's not. I think it's something we need to move on now.
I think that the board can take action to convey the park to the county of Kern and give staff direction to take all steps necessary to do that. Among those steps would be canceling the contracts in question, giving the 90-day notices on the contract.
Can we do that separate apart from that? I would just like to make my motion is to cancel it on the items E and F. Combined.
can I suggest something?
Sure.
Number one, we're talking about contracts. The park and pool is a CSA, and it's 63.5. Refer to that in your motion so it's very specific on which CSA you're talking about, because I'm not sure if you want to do that for all CSAs.
Definitely for the pool. Okay, let me make my motion is that we inform the county.
Point of order, we're going to take item E, we're going to discuss opening and closing the pool. When we get to item F, you can bring your motion at that time. We're on item E. Motion whether we open and close the pool. Staff is recommending that we close the pool. I concur.
It's a continued debt. We don't need Get a bad debt, you get rid of it.
We need a motion
I'll make a motion
to close,
to close the
to keep full close, okay.
I'll second.
Mr. Wallace seconds. Public discussion.
Gentlemen, you have a bylaw that says that you have Parks and Recreation. The RCSD has Parks and Recreation. What happened is of Jim Williford Park, we took it over because we needed to have a park. The only parks we have in this community are on school properties. We could work with the school. We took over the Jim Williford Park and people put money in it. The Willifords himself was called, it was the Williford Park. They put in over $5,000. Other people put money in there to bring that park up and provide it for a pool for the community. What happened is that your bylaws say that you have parks. This was our chance of having a park. It was put together. We have basketball courts, you have tennis courts, and you have other things. What happened is that I haven't looked at the things that Olaf just gave you, but what happened is I would propose that this dealing with the West Park be tabled until you can actually come up with the fact is that you have realized the fact that this is your park, our park, the people's park. People have put money in there to keep it going, but what happened is that all of a sudden we didn't have any funds to run the park. That's why the foundation was so important, because people donated money, they could get an off-right because of the 209, the tax code. And so if anybody gave any money for that, the other thing on the skate park was a different completely thing. But it's very important. For example, Steve was talking about getting an area 5 miles out or someplace to have a park. This is his park. If we can't operate it this summer because of lack of funds, then we need to get the community put together and come up with some kind of way that we can get money to do the parks. Working with our general manager, he's a smart man, okay? And so we don't want to close something down that belongs to the people. And if you close it down, then you're in violation of your own board policy. Are you going to take that out of your policy too? Olaf? So what happened is I recommend that you table this and let the community and the people realize that you are working for them to have a park with a pool. I don't think that we can operate it in this short of time. Did you operate it last year, Steve? How much did it cost?
I'm not real sure, but from what Brad said, it was about $250,000, but that included the park itself and
Okay.
the CSA, the entire.
Lump chump change.
So, okay, so I would recommend that we just table this, you table it, give it to your general manager, that we don't open the park and tell the people the reason why we can't open it, and that they're going to have some other funding to come up with some funding to fund parks. Because I just don't think that we can let it pass. And I don't think it was $250,000 to you. I can operate a business for a lot less than that. But I don't know. You've got the books, but you're a smart man. I'm sure that you can come up with something working with these board members, but we don't want to give it back to Kern County, who gave it to us. You're giving it back. In fact, I'll give it to Sky Park, where you live. How about giving that back to the county, too?
Never was the county, Bob.
Huh?
Never was the county, it's always private.
Oh, yes, there's a question out here that doesn't belong.
Well, always private.
Anyway, it doesn't make any difference to us. I recommend that you table this thing until it can work out, until the community can actually find a way to support parks and recreation like it's supposed to be done. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Gentlemen, Jack Miller again, and I'll provide you a copy of this when I'm done. I'm just going to read off the table here and then you can see the results. But each city and district has an obligation for parks and recreation facilities and programs to support youth and adult physical activities to provide individuals the opportunity to maintain a sound mind and body. Such programs also provide an outlet for youth to progress mentally and physically in an environment that minimizes youth gang and crime activity. Well-managed recreation programs are a primary asset to a community. One asset of the RCSD is the Jim Williford Park, with primary regards to the swimming pool venue. Public perception is that the public pool is necessary and an obligation of a city or district to provide such a community resource. Public pools are typically provided as a community service, with pool maintenance and operating costs typically outweighing the revenue and require relief from general funds to operate. Below is a small sample of income and expense reports from various public pools from around the country, which anybody's welcome to see this, it's just general data. And the sample average is a net loss of 45.3% to maintain such a program. Most public pools, such as the Jim Williford Pool, are structured for seasonal use only and do not support year-round programs. It's possible that a covered structure for summer-winter use would significantly increase annual revenue. However, this would be a significant upgrade, and I have to consider if the cost would offset the overall expense. Considerations. With California in a severe drought, is the expensive water usage in a public pool program the best use of our natural resources? To upgrade the pool facility and programs to be a profit center to RCSD, does the upgrade costs and revenue outweigh the expense of the programs? By eliminating the pool asset, does this allow RCSD to provide the key resources necessary for our district services? My recommendation, sample analysis indicates that almost all community pools operate at a loss. Due to limited resources, RCSD cannot afford to maintain such an asset. It is my recommendation that RCSD turns the asset over to another entity that does not fall under RCSD budget in order to free up revenue to critical RCSD community expenses. But the analysis shows a comparison. I did not see one single pool income and expense report that I saw online that was operating at a profit. Every single one of them were operating at a loss.
Let me ask you a question. How many of them are operating at 100% loss? Research.
On my research, the worst one was at a 85% loss. And the best one, which was a very small pool, was a 7.1% loss.
Well, you know, I think what it comes down to, if Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, see, we're losing money every year.
Absolutely.
That money has to be paid back.
Right.
And you can't keep losing that money. You can't legally take funds from water or sewer unless you're going to pay it back.
Right. Now,
that's the point we're missing.
Right. And most communities, as a city, have an operating overhead that can afford that community service and provide that to the community. RCSD, in my opinion, does not have that overhead to offer that service.
It's illegal to do that. And well, there isn't an entity that does have the ability to operate that service, and that is the county. County Kern is responsible for the park, has been responsible for the park. We volunteered to take it over in 2007. And we'll be back online responsible for the park and responsible for putting money back into the park. And it's a lawsuit for them. Then they can take it from different areas in their budget. Unfortunately, we cannot.
Right. And I could concur with that. So I wanted to state that because public opinion is so opposite to that, assuming that a pool is a profit center, and it's not. It's a huge burden, huge expense. And me as a citizen and a homeowner, I'd rather see the breaks go to my services for everyday needs and living and so forth. And I'll provide you with copies.
Yes.
might add, the numbers that you're getting and even received from Mr. Rockbrand, we have not had adequate time to drill down into those numbers. The numbers of 3 CSAs that we have. In the past, those, when they came from the county, were dumped into one fund. And we have just not had enough time to break out all costs, to be very specific to you so you have the right numbers in general, because of the short timeline that we've had in trying to attempt to give you a good figure. That is the best that he could do at the time. But with the way that parks and employee time are charged, we drilled down into that point prospectively in the last budget to ensure that we were charging adequate time against the park fund and not over inflating that.
And budget, correct me if I'm wrong, the budget for parks for this year is $600,000, and at least $500,000 of that is for Wilson Park, correct?
Well, what you're looking at is, again, what I'm trying to explain. That is in one fund. You're looking at Fund 51, and all that CSA money is in there, and it's inflated. If you look at the numbers today, there is no cost applied to 63.5. And that's not right, and we know it's not right, but we need time to break out everything, and we have to pull out a lot of data in order to determine exactly where those costs are applied. The problem is, they never worried about that when they originally set up the fund to drill down that deep into each one, because it was the parks fund. And it took care of the parkways, it took care of the park, it took care of the pool. So in order to break out all of that, including the loan cost, were you aware that they paid for this lot on the corner with over $600 and some thousand of park money? So that debt has an asset against it. That's one. Two, in the way that the parks were charged in the early years, they said, okay, we're gonna split between water, sewer, and parks a standard allocation of cost. Maybe it was 40-40-20. Well, when the restructuring and everything occurred, when parks started going downhill and they weren't doing the programs like they did, all those costs were still being applied against parks. We need to go back and look at those costs and reapply that to get a good number of what this loan should adequately be. But we're going to need some time to give you some real good numbers on 63.5 and the other 2 assessment districts. My guess is the $250,000 figure is too high. I believe that the pool and the park, and I had calculated it just based on the numbers I had at the time when I first got here, and it was somewhat less than that. And it could have grown to the 250, but I think it's a lot less.
Well, 100% of our discretionary money, 1% tax money we get back from the state every year, property tax money, is about $230,000, right?
Correct.
And 100% of that goes to the Parks and Recreation Department. It doesn't go to street lighting. It doesn't
That's my
go to
understanding,
It
yes.
doesn't go to water, it doesn't go to sewer. It goes over there and disappears.
Right now, we've got a $2 million debt.
I don't know that that's what I'm trying to explain. It may not be 2 million.
Well, according to the last data that Brad gave us,
Right.
they've loaned $2 million from sewer and water to the parks.
Right.
And right now, the parks has no way physically to pay it back other than discretionary funds.
Or perhaps getting credit for the land that it owns or purchased over there.
Correct. That's one example.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a motion and a second. First of all, is there any more public discussion?
My name is Nadia. I've been a resident in Rosamond for about 8 years, and I have a grade school, middle school child now, and I don't know how many other people here have kids, but it's really disappointing to find out that you guys are closing the pool. And I didn't hear about this until last Saturday when I was volunteering to do the community cleanup. And it was hearsay from other people that you guys were planning to close the pool. I know you guys are going through a lot of money issues and a lot of other things that you guys talked about, but I guess the bottom line is it's still a real big disappointment to the kids, and it's on top of the skate park being gone. So, you know, it seems like we're losing our parks one by one, and there's nothing to give us any hope or to replace it with in the community. And it kind of, you know, and another thing, I'd like to see this district have an interface for public opinion or public questions, that if there was somebody that could be like a liaison, you know, that could issue statements on the district's behalf for questions. So when I heard about the pool being closed, I was like going, well, really? Why? And I wanted to ask questions, and the person, of course, that gave me the info only heard it from another person. It was, oh, you have to go to the board meeting if you want to ask questions, and you know, you'd be lucky to get an answer. So, if you know, I'd like to see this board have some sort of, you know, person, and not some outside company, but like a person that works here at the district that, you know, people can call and ask questions, that person can be their interface with the public, you know, and have a way of giving them answers to questions, you know, and like, well, okay, you guys are closing the pool, what can we do about it, you know, what can we do, a fundraiser, can we, you know, is there some way that, you know, besides having to come to this meeting, that can we talk to somebody and have, you know, our opinions and our concerns go a little further besides just the person answering the phone at the district here saying, you know, write a letter, or, you know, I don't know. There just seems to be a dead end when it comes to being a communicator to the popular opinion. So, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Williford.
Back. My name's Russ Williford. I've spoke several times to you. I brought up the fact that there was like 7 or 8 pools in town when I got here, and we're down now to 1 that I know of that is open to the public. These others were open to the public, but now there's 1. The community has grown approximately 10 times from that point. I realize you don't have the funding right now, but let's work on getting the funding. We've kept it open keep it open 1 more year, and let's see if we can get something passed. I did not realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, the CSA for that pool and park, it's only the people in West Park are paying it?
Yes.
If that's a regional, and we'll have to say that it's a regional park and a regional pool, let everybody pay for it. Out to 60th and to 15th Street or Hook on the east side, and Avenue A to Bacchus.
Everybody has been.
What?
I don't think they are.
Yeah, 100% of our discretionary money goes for that park. Everybody has been.
No,
No.
I believe you wanted to have the discretionary money to pay for lights, and they voted that down already. We haven't voted down the pool.
They did vote down the funds for
Yeah, that's
How many years ago?
several years ago.
Several years ago. I believe
They
1998.
give the service district authority to take care of it, not the funds.
I agree. Let's re-educate the public.
And the one man said that when we put them together, and Steve says you couldn't do that, right?
correct.
It's not allowed to do that.
All right. But let's re-educate the public. Mr. Weinstein spoke at the Wednesday meeting, I believe it was, about the bond issue that they passed to build the new school. How many times did they have to run that by? I believe he said 3 before they finally passed the bond issue. Let's get a bond issue out there if we have to. Let's keep it open. There is nothing in this town for the kids to do right now. Let's get something for them to do.
Can we put you in charge of that?
I'll help. I got enough on my plate right now. I'm kind of like you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ahmad. I'm from Adam. This is my first time to come to this board. I would like to discuss this full service discussion. First of all, I have a question here to this board. What's the difference between Cal City and Rosamond? Cal City, you have too much revenue coming in. Like, for example, they have the golf club. They have a lot of business coming into the town, which is bring taxes and bring revenues to the city, which pays for the public parks and swimming pools over there.
They're a city.
Yeah, I understand we're a city. We are a community here. We can improve the community with this board. If we can get business in, we can get built golf clubs. We built a range. We built off-road tracks for people coming from all the way from San Diego to Cal City, just for the off-road tracks. Why we don't build something like this here? Why is everything going to pay back to the public park, and then we are not going to be losing anything from the board? So the question is, why we don't improve this community by bringing business in, or building revenue to the community? That's my question.
I'd like to answer that. It's a misconception a lot of times in a community when there's a governmental entity that has a board like this that's elected by the people, and they have some service requirements. The service requirements of this particular board are not like a city. There are limited services that we provide, and that's water, sewer, and parks and rec, minus the money. Graffiti abatement. As far as beautification, bringing in businesses to our community, there's other organizations. More importantly, this is an unincorporated community, and it is part and run by the county of Kern, and presumably by the supervisor of the district, who is by default the mayor of the community. They do have bigger purses than this district. They have a general fund, which means they have discretionary revenue that they can place wherever they want to. Unlike this district, we have an enterprise budget. The water fund is like one budget. The sewer revenues are another budget. The Parks and Rec fund is another budget. And all of them have to fund themselves. And because we have the shortfall in the Parks and Rec, because when the people of the community gave the district the responsibility to do Parks and Rec, they neglected to give the Community Service District the money to accomplish that task. So the Parks and Rec has been borrowing money from the sewer and water fund, and are now approximately $2 million in the hole, but I do believe it's going to be less than that, but still a significant deficit. And there comes a time when people want things, and it's gotten to a point where the expectation has been created. The only people paying for that pool right now are a select few in the West Park area. Others pay a small amount when they enter and swim, but it's not anywhere close to what's necessary to keep up the cost. So there comes that time when you have to ask the question, how long are we going to take a loss? Or what are we going to do different to generate the revenue to pay for it. And my comments in the meeting last week, where I'm conflicted. On one hand, from a fiscal standpoint, I have got to recommend to this board that they're losing money, and they have to decide what they're going to do about that. On the other hand, I grew up here, and I know what lack of parks mean. I know what the lack of swimming pools mean. So I'm very sensitive to that issue. Director Glennan last week brought up the point that the people voted, but did not vote the revenue. And we went out one time, and it got turned down. And I think Director Landsgaard pointed out it was flat turned down 2-1. But when we mentioned that we had gone out 3 times, actually we had gone out to 1 vote and 2 polls, and the polls kept coming back that no one would pay the amount that was necessary. They were defeated resoundingly. If we're going to take, and this was my recommendation this week, because I am conflicted, and darn it, I'm going to tell you that the conflict is large. No, I'm going to finish.
No, I want just to ask you to talk about something else at the same time.
Oh.
When we're talking about, go out and ask the community to do a parcel tax, explain to them what
I'll do that also.
Yes, thank you.
But my recommendation was, if we expect the people of the community, and this is why it failed, my understanding is there was not a good plan for them to see where the money was going to be expended. Most people will vote for something if they get something. But if they're not going to get something, they won't vote for it. So my recommendation coming out here in the conflicted manner that I am, recommend to the board fiscally, it's your responsibility to take an action. But shouldn't we take and develop a good plan, take it to the people one time, because it's been years since they've seen it, and let them know if it is not passed, that this pool, park, all of this is going away. Because whether we start this year or next year paying the debt service, we still have a debt service payment to make. And we can make that once we dissolve the parks. We can take that revenue that we're dumping in there. We can start paying back the debt service. Sooner the better from a fiscal standpoint, but do we owe it to the community to take it to them one last time, explain to them a good plan, a park that will serve the community that they might be willing to pay for, and roll in the debt and the cost of this that's lacking into that plan, so it's all taken care of at one time. When I first got here, I did a poll because I had to try to figure out how to stop the bleeding. And in that poll, it was a scientific poll. It was not just a regular pollster coming in. They put a lot of work into determining this with an 80% success rate in all of the ones that they've run. This community would go for a $35 to a $40 fee to maintain the park. However, that's only enough to keep us to stop the bleeding. After getting that information, my thought was, if we go to the community and ask them for $35 or $40, and they see nothing in return because it's the same as it was yesterday, that if we ever wanted to go to a parcel tax, they would say no because they didn't get anything for what they paid for already. So that was a good idea. It gave us good information, but we couldn't do a stop the bleeding. We've got to take a bigger measure for the community's sake. And pools, parks. Let me throw this idea out real quick. This community doesn't need pocket parks, one here, one there, little tiny parks. They need parks that the community's kids can enjoy. They have football, they have soccer, they have softball, little league, all basketball, all of these things. And not to mention, the seniors need a place to walk. People need a place to recreate, to go to picnic. What the community needs is a regional park, one that has something for everybody. And if it has something for everybody, then maybe everybody would want to contribute to it in the community. And certainly, if we hit the county of Kern and say we need more money for those assessment districts, guess who's going to pay it? How many people here are from West Park? One. Thank you, because you would be paying it, the only one in the room that would be paying that fee, that increased fee by the county of Kern on any of the three, or any of the two CSAs out there. That isn't fair. I've been very reluctant to bring to the board a mechanism that would tax just those people to benefit the entire community, because it wouldn't be fair.
That's why you need to make it the entire.
And Ella, that's what I did. I went to the entire community on that $35 to $40. But actually, when you start looking at what we need, that price is going to be a heck of a lot higher.
But when you divide it out per month over a year.
The calculation at 5,768 times a number will give you an annual number. And if that number isn't large enough to start building a park, now what it does do, it establishes a mechanism for debt service. But we've already got a debt, so we'd have to roll that in. But it establishes that mechanism to leverage other revenues and utilize that to pay the debt service. That's a mechanism that can be used. But who's going to vote for something without a plan? And if there's not something for everybody, this community desperately needs soccer fields, youth football, little league, all of those things, basketball, and adult leagues also for softball. So there, if you put something for everybody together, if you give me an opportunity to bring back to you a plan, and more importantly, a cost, because you would have to consider that cost of election, cost of development. At least we can look at this and decide whether or not we want to float it to the community one last time before we take what probably, and I'm not going to argue this point, probably ought to be taken, and that is shut it down, because we don't have any money. And guess who's going to pay it? Each one of the ratepayers are going to end up paying that back. So we've got to take an action, but I would ask that maybe we take another look and give it one more shot and see if we can make it happen.
This year?
This year.
Steve, what are we looking at, $100 a parcel?
You're probably looking closer to 200, Russ.
Well, Steve,
Let me tell you how much.
$83 a year at $500,000 a year for 6,000 homes.
You need twice that.
Yeah, you'd need twice that,
So
Alice.
165.
Yeah, you're going to calculate a 200 times 5,
200 times what?
5768.
Steve, are we talking only about West Park?
No.
No, we're talking about a regional park and West Park.
No. The first thing we've got to settle is West Park.
It's both of them together.
And how much we can get to get the West Park thing, so we do it. And then, at the same time, ask, are we going to have a regional big park or something? But we need to first settle the West Park. Because we have that now.
Well, that would have to be rolled into this entire thing. It would have to go.
No. If you roll all the thing, a big regional park.
But let me
The cost, Bob, the cost would have to be rolled together.
Let me explain a little. It's actually something that's been kicked around for a lot longer than about 20 years. It comes down to benefit assessment. A regional park would be part of that, but there should be something that allows a benefit for everybody. In other words, if you live at one corner of the city, you shouldn't be having to pay for a park in the other corner of the city unless you've got something in your area that also benefits you. And a regional park allows everybody to have a participation in, but the plan should not just have a regional park, it should have bike paths, and I think we've had that before. It should have a way to have maybe an improvement in your area. In Rosamond itself, we've talked about having, and I haven't seen it yet, I've been on the board 3 months, I've not seen a proposal from anybody on this, so to see it now, I'm a little bit suspicious. But the frontage road that runs along the freeway, ideal place for a regional park. A lot of acreage over there, it could be done. The area over there by Tropical Mountain, we own some land there, the RCSD does. Another place for a wildlands place where you can go hang out, but obviously not quite a regional park too far out. The West Park area is not a regional park. It's West Park is actually a local park. It might turn into more of a regional park given the fact that the school district is building 2 softball fields and a soccer field as we speak. But the fact is, until you get more homes built over there, it's not going to be a regional park. It is a local park. And the bigger issue is, if you set up a benefit assessment district, what are you going to do about the east side? Right now, the east side gets nothing for what it puts into the tax coffers every year. The school maintains United Street Park, but the east side of Rosamond doesn't have, there's no park in it for them. All those things have to be looked at and said, okay, here's what we're going to do for you to make that happen. And that was talked about years ago. I know I saw a plan probably 10, 15 years ago to do something like that, but nobody's ever brought it back, and it hasn't been brought back now, and I don't think it's a good time to bring it back right now. I think negotiation-wise, we need to put Mr. Perez and Mr. Mackay on in a good bargaining position that says, look, county, we don't have the money. We can't steal from other departments anymore. We have to go forward, and if you want to help us out, you can be part of the solution. Otherwise, the problem's all yours, county, and give it back to them. But we need to, I think we give a better bargaining position if we say we're giving the park back to you, county, unless you can come up with another idea. Which I haven't heard anything from the county at all on this, so I don't know if we've asked them or anything on that. But the point is, there's got to be more involved in here, more involved in this picture than just the RCSD. And until we are in a better bargaining position, and I think the action that's being proposed here tonight does put us in a better bargaining position, the county's not going to come to the table. And if the county doesn't come to the table, then where are we? I don't know. Maybe we are back to square one. Maybe we are back to saying, okay, well, we're going to be another pool. And you, the voters, need to insist on us. Keep on coming back here and say, look, where's that regional park plan? And you promised us. And not just for the regional, but all the local parks in my area. What are you doing for my area? Where's my walking area for the seniors? Where's my area for the east side? What are you doing? What are you doing? You have some great off-road trails there, north on the east side tracks. What are you doing there? What have you done? What can you do? And if you insist on us doing that, I think that's the way it's going to go. But I think the process has started to put us in a good position.
Community facilities and benefits. However, the reality of that will never pass a vote for a park plan at the cost that it would take to do all that. And certainly the plan could include what you're talking about. But the first part of the plan and the first time you go out would be to build your regional park as the anchor for the other things that you have in the community. So once you get a positive something for everybody, then you start working on your zones of benefit in other parts of the community. Because you cannot put all of that together, even if you just did zones of benefit, little parks in various areas. Number one, the maintenance cost of all of that is tremendous. And number two, the little small parks, how many people can play soccer on a small park? It's real difficult. And what you're trying to do, and I know that in your heart that you like parks and recreation. And is it wise? Where are you going to play basketball, Oli, if we don't have something for everybody? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, I guess what I'm looking at and what I looked at back then is Palmdale. In Palmdale, when they passed their Parks and Recreation Plan, I think it was Bob? What was his name? Anyway, I believe he was on the AV College board. and he was the manager of the Parks Where he got that whole thing through. It was a regional, it was a complete city plan for Recare Park all the way over to the east side, all the way to 47th and or whatever, or past that, 57th and whatever, east. They got it all together, and it was something for everyone, and that's something that has to happen. If you do a benefit assessment, if you do it that way, you don't have to have 2/3 vote, you have 50% plus one, because it's hundreds of votes, so that's the thing that has to be done.
We have a motion on the floor to discuss item E. We have a recommendation from the general manager to close the swimming pool for this year. Call for the question.
May I say something before we vote?
We're going to vote, please, Mr. Glennan.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, 4-1. Move to item F, discussion and possible action to convey Jim Williford Park to the county of Kern. You want to table this item until you can get this other?
No, I think the way that the attorney recommended it is to tell, the motion would be to convey it to the staff, to convey it to the county of Kern, but I think I would like to qualify it a little bit, just to give the staff a little more room to work with, and yourself as the president, and that is to say, to convey it to the county of Kern unless.
Can I just ask you to do one thing? Help the secretary out. Keep your motion short.
Where's the, which other motion? To convey Jim Williford Park back to the county, or have it revert to the county of Kern. My motion would be to, as part of possibly reverting back to county of Kern, we give them their contract back on the pool. We give them a 90-day notice on that, with the caveat that if staff determine from the county that maybe the county has additional funds that would help us with the park in general, and with maybe a third party coming in and managing it, if they could put some numbers together that make sense.
I'm sorry, what's the motion?
That's part of George.
Sorry, let me back up. I move that we direct staff to cancel the contract for the pool of 63.5 with the county of Kern.
That motion is not on the agenda.
Then you want to retire to,
However,
it's part and parcel.
Its further definition, Jim Williford Park is 63.5.
It is, okay, so is your motion to direct staff to convey Jim Williford Park to the county of Kern by giving the 90-day notice on contract 63.5?
I'll make that my motion.
I thought you might.
It's not what I want to do.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Public discussion. Mr. Wood.
Before he gets there, staff understands what you're trying to do, and any developments will bring back.
Okay.
You know, I don't agree with this action here. You know, I'll be the first one to say that the parks is a money pit. They have been for years. But that isn't for lack of trying on this agency and this board to find a solution, including forming and using the foundation to try to find funding as well. You know, it takes me back to a commercial that I saw on TV in 1997. There was a young man by the name of Daniel Landsgaard who was walking through a vacant, wheat-filled lot over on United Street, saying this community needed to have parks. I agreed with that concept. When I bought my house here in 1992, I drove by a pristine lot on United Street that had two big signs there that said, future school site, future park site. And my wife and I said, hey, this is great. We're buying a house over here, we're gonna have a new school, a new park, great for the kids. I had 5 of them. And when I got appointed to this board in 1997, and we went to the people to get Parks Recreation powers and graffiti abatement powers. And yes, we didn't get any funding. But Daniel and I worked very hard together forming the first Park and Recreation Committee. And we dedicated United Street Park in 2003. Debt-free. We knew it could be done. We got Best and Krieger to donate their legal services. We had our engineering company, forgive me, I forgot the name of them, they changed their name several times since then, but Ben Horn and Claude Seal designed the park, put in the water systems, dual system at that, and they donated their time as well. Boyle Engineering, I'm sorry, now I remembered it. But the problem is that we knew we had to come up with some way for funding. That's what led to the formation of the foundation in 2007. Because nobody was going to donate any money or write a large check. And the foundation has been effective. We've had some bad publicity over the years, which has hurt funding, but I feel that we've turned the corner on that. And you know, and donations are going to start coming in again. But the thing is that the foundation was able to supply upgrades to the pump system for the pool. The foundation was going to supplied a heater, and because of the foundation, one of the solar companies donated the handicap lift for the pool so we could open it up. I believe it was last summer, right? We couldn't open it up without that lift. The ADA would not let us do it. But somebody was able to come in and make a donation, take advantage of the 501c3 that we had, and the pool's opened up for the community. The problem is that I was here when the county said, we don't have the money. And they filled in that pool and put an asphalt cap over the top of it. You give that park, which is the only park that this district has, and I want to kind of go back to United Street Park a little bit. It was the out. Sir, please let me finish, because this is important, because this really affects the community. And I'd like you to just indulge me for a couple minutes. Steve Perez and the previous board thought outside the box and came up with a way to keep United Street Park open by giving it back to the school district. They have the money now to keep it going. Don't know if they'll have the money in the future, but today they do. United Street Park is green, lush, and a great asset to this community. Williford Park, if you give it back to the county is not going to keep the pool open. They're going to fill it with sand again, and essentially what's going to happen is we're going to be no better off than we were on that day that I saw that commercial with Daniel Landsgaard walking through a weed-infested lot saying we need parks in this community. Don't be so quick to just give this back to the county. We fought hard for this. A lot of people have dedicated thousands of hours to make parks a reality in this community. And just, let's not be so quick to give up. Thank you.
If the possibility is that by going with the motion and it's successful in the sense that the county says, okay, we'll take care of it, and that relieves us of debt, that what was just stated could happen, which is they would then fill it up. So that's not the expectation we'd want, no matter how we did this. So is it possible that the supervisor of 2nd District could be made a part of the communication that goes, the declaration that we are not going to be able to do this, because why would the supervisor want to be responsible for not helping to not fill the pool up with cement again?
Let me ask a question. Is it possible to get direction to staff, if we vote yes on this, to say, okay, but we've got $230,000 of discretionary money coming in for a budget next year. We want you to take $50,000 of that and use that to negotiate with the county on keeping the pool open, so our expenses for the pool don't go beyond $50,000. And we'll have some other discretionary money to spend on other things, so you're not hogging it all on the park there. Is that something we can do?
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I understood the question was,
say we budget $50,000 to lose on the pool. If I give it all back to the county and say, look, if you need help keeping the pool open, there's $50,000 we can give you help, that's it. Is that something we can do?
yes, you could say, yes, you could make the motion you would amend your motion.
Right.
And it would be to direct staff to initiate negotiations with the county regarding continued,
Giving it back to the county?
giving it back to them with up to $50,000 of contribution by the district.
If they'll keep the pool open.
If they'll keep the pool open.
Or help with the park.
And if they won't, then give the notice under 63.5.
I think that.
Would you like to amend to that?
I'd like to amend the motion to do that. That would-
Please give me a moment so I can write down what I just said, because I don't think I know what I said.
Can you say something? You can tell them that, but we've already voted to close the pool. So why would we say we'll give you $50,000 to keep the pool open? We already voted to close it.
We did.
We're calling for funding by the district. If they take it over,
We can give them $50,000 to keep it open.
We help them with that. In other words, they'd have a little more money to work with. I think that would make sense. It stops our bleeding from 250.
We've already voted to close it.
And it gives,
And it's ours for another 90 days.
it gives the staff something to work with.
Yeah, the summer will be over.
One of the things that you have to realize is in order to open this pool, we have to hire temporary staff for that pool, lifeguards, number one. We have to make sure that they're prepared. There's a limited number of lifeguards, as was pointed out to us at the workshop. We don't get in there early, we don't get our lifeguards, we don't open the pool anyway. So these are the things that we're looking at for the costs. Okay? I would say this to you here. With this motion to give to the county $50,000, I'm a nay voter on that one. If we're going to give the county $50,000, let's give it back and let's reopen up item E and fund this thing for a year with $50,000. Don't make sense to me.
I'm going to withdraw my $50,000 addendum, and that's something that they can think about. All right.
Did we ever have the
There was
concurrence
no
of this
second. There was no
second?
second for the.
The first one died, or the second one died for lack of second.
Okay.
Could you read us back the first motion, please?
Yes. Oh, are you going to do it? Is that, or you want me to? You can do it. Okay. The motion was to convey the park by giving 90 days notice on the contract for 63.5. County Service Area 63.5, dated
Mr.
November
Wood, you
11,
already had your 5
2008.
minutes.
That was the motion.
All right. Everybody understand the motion? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
4-1. Okay, brings us to item 10, consent agenda, or consent calendar. We're looking at approving A through G. A is approved regular board meeting minutes December 10th, 2014. B is approved regular board minutes December 23rd, 2014. C is approved regular board meeting minutes, January 14th, 2015. Item B is approved special board meeting minutes, January 29th, 2015. Item E is approved Director Olaf Landsgaard's expense report dated 3/2/2015 in the amount of $234.09. Item F is approved Director Byron Glennan's expense report dated 3/5/2015 in the amount of $207.20. Okay, and item G is approved check voucher register dated 03/03/2015 to 03/16/2015. And we're going to ask Mr. Landsgaard.
Well, move that we take item A off the consent calendar and table items B through D. I haven't got a chance to read the rest of them. I have item A. I would like to make a motion that we make that an action item number 1, and there's some changes that I made. I recommended to correct the minutes as presented.
It would be appropriate to make your motion be to approve item A with the following changes and to simply state them.
Okay, item A with the following change. From number 4, A, delete, suspend, and replace with amend 4055.5 of, end quote. Basically, we did not move to suspend the policy, we moved to amend the policy so that seniority does count regardless of how long you've been out of office, if you recall. And I have presented it in writing, so hopefully you have a copy of that somewhere. If you need a copy, can I give that to you?
I have.
Okay. Liz, do you have a copy of that? Okay. But basically, I'll read it to you. Delete, suspend, replace with amend 4055.05. References page 6, lines 253 to 254 of the transcript. Under B, insert after nominate, add the words and elect Director Ed Mackay. That's page 8, lines 315 to 316 of the transcript. That supports that. Insert after nominate and add and appoint Director Wallis. That's page 8, lines 328 to 331 of the transcript supporting that. Insert after nominate the words and appoint Director Shingledecker. That's page 10, lines 431 to 435 of the transcript. The other changes I had are just semantic. I'm going to leave them out. But just the A and B changes, that's what I'd like to have changed to those proposed minutes.
So your motion is to approve the minutes with your amendments as just read and stated in your prior email.
Correct.
4 items.
4 items, yes, correct.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Well,
Public discussion?
We need a second and then we go to public discussion.
okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Director Landsgaard, seconded by Director Wallis. Public discussion.
I have a question. Are we changing these minutes that were already previously done? Are you changing the minutes?
We haven't never approved them.
They've never been approved.
They've never been approved.
Okay, so that means you can change them any way you want them to state, or? Since you've never approved them, what you're saying is that the minutes that were done that evening you're changing them to say something else?
There's additions and corrections, yeah, there's.
And does the public know what corrections they are? Because I don't know the numbers that you're spouting out.
They weren't substantive changes.
They weren't? Okay. Very good. I'm sorry. I needed that clarified. I was afraid you were changing something that shouldn't be changed.
I would like input from our secretary. Her feeling about the
You have your own transcript?
I would like her input. But if you don't like that,
I don't think that's appropriate.
I don't have them in front of me.
Can I come up one more time? Okay. Excuse me. how did you state that? Were they minutes or transcriptions?
I stated how I wanted to correct the minutes as drafted, and I put the reasons why, and I said the transcript states it this way on these pages and line numbers.
So what's a transcript?
That is a written out from the recording.
Someone actually typed up what was in the recording.
Okay, so you're changing that, you're deleting that?
No, the transcript remains the same.
The transcript remains the same. The motion is to approve the minutes as amended, amending the minutes, not the transcript. The transcript is certified by a court reporter, the transcript does not change.
Okay.
The minutes, stating in short form what the transcript says, the transcript is, I don't know, several hundred pages long, are being amended to reflect, I'll say, more precisely what is in the transcript.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, that's all you have. All right, thank you, I had to clarify that.
Okay. So for people that don't understand minutes, basically the secretary is responsible for summarizing the actions that took place at a meeting. The recordings are to assist the secretary in the preparation of those minutes. They are not required to be dictated or transcribed word for word. My minutes are not wrong. I feel, as he mentioned, they made a motion to nominate somebody. I just didn't put in that they nominated and then elected somebody. Based on my minutes, if they made a motion to nominate somebody and it passed, you would assume that they were elected. But Director Landsgaard has requested that we
be more precise.
Be more precise so nobody can get that confused, which I understand. One other area, which I think you mentioned first.
Because it says delete, suspend, and replace with amend.
Right. For that item, because of the nature of the meeting, we had two agendas. And so it was really hard to follow when you were going from one agenda to another. And so in the best of my ability, I tried to follow your order, and I tried to follow the motions that you were making. As we could see, you make a motion and then you decide to amend it, but you don't make a comment that you're amending that motion. So it makes it very difficult for me to keep track of the motions. So I understand that for that specific one, you wanted to make a change as far as you didn't suspend the handbook, but you did modify a specific policy. And I am working with legal counsel's assistance to make sure that you guys stay on track. Don't elaborate on your motions, be precise, so I can do my job correctly. And I hope you guys help me on that.
Okay. Hopefully I'll be a little more concise in the future. I apologize for that.
Yes.
I might add one other thing. Minutes only have to reflect the action taken. It doesn't have to have any notes whatsoever. So what we're adding here is something that would give the reader the opportunity at some date in the future to look back and actually get a sense for what was happening. If we get too precise on correcting minutes and nitpicking little tiny things, it becomes a laborious act for the clerk to transcribe or to finalize those minutes. So I would say that if the intent of the minutes holds true, rather than nitpick minutes, we ought to, and certainly if they're incorrect, they ought to be corrected.
Well, BA is definitely incorrect, and the other one does help the reader, so I think those, I deleted 3 other changes that otherwise would have been just semantics.
Yeah.
So they're going to give me substantive stuff too.
Real improvement, there's no substance to them because all you're doing is making it more clear, but it's clear the way that the minutes are stated.
Well, not in 4BA. We never voted to suspend the bylaws. That would be incorrect.
There was a statement made at one point in the course of the transcript that you were considering it, but that motion was never passed.
Right.
So that did appear in the transcript. It was not out of the realm of possibility for that to have ended up in the minutes. It was a very confusing meeting.
Okay.
So, but that correction is an accurate correction based on the transcript as I read it.
I worked for AVAC as a secretary, assistant, and everything else. I am so sad for this young lady that you guys had, did you honestly pay a transcriptor to come in and read those, listen to those minutes?
We never ordered it, but that's okay. Go ahead.
You'd get a court reporter to do that for you.
We didn't order it, the manager ordered it.
Did you directed him?
Why did he?
You directed him?
I think we did, actually.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
Yes,
did.
Yeah.
How much did that cost the district?
Idea?
You have no idea what it costs for a court reporter to dissect the minutes.
Transcription service out of Arizona, I don't think it's appropriate.
How much, 1,000, 2,000?
It was about 1,300.
What are you paying her for if you don't trust her? How sad. Oli, you're better than that. What is wrong with you? That you're nitpicking those minutes. Why don't you spend the district money on something better? I've done secretary work for 40 years. I've never been treated like that in 40 years. I am so sorry. I'm going to apologize on behalf of me for you because I know how bad you must feel. Thank you.
Call for question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That's the truth. The minutes as amended.
Item, now you want to table B, C, and
Just B and C would be fine.
you want to make a motion?
I move we table the minutes B and C.
So they just table it.
No, the motion to table it died for lack of a second. So now they're taking items B, C, and D. Sorry, Mr. President, I was out.
Appreciate it. I couldn't hear. So I entertain a motion to approve items B, C, and D.
Second.
Yes. It's been moved and seconded.
No, it was Glenn.
Glenn,
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry, that's what I just asked. It's been moved and seconded to approve items B, C, and D. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
4-1.
My understanding is I can vote on my reimbursement. I've asked many lawyers that. There's nothing, I don't have to, I can vote on my own.
Consistent with board policy, you can.
No fees in it. Unless I think I'm.
Do I have a motion on item E?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Landsgaard to come back.
No.
Item F, approve Director Byron Glennan's expense report dated 3/5/2015 in the amount of $270 or $207.20.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item G, 03/03/2015 to 03/16/2015.
So moved.
Mr. Brennan moves. Do I have a second? Okay, public discussion. Any public discussion on item G? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.